maybe what I can do is just take a minute or two just to go through the origins of the coronavirus.
Sorry, Tony, just clarify. Yes.
You can get it. You can get it twice, more than twice, but to be able to give an explanation of that answer, I need to go back a little bit in terms of how the coronavirus is. So the coronavirus has been around for a long time, and it exists in multiple forms, and it can be present in a lot of animals. Now, bats, for example, can store the virus or can keep the virus. Sorry, just fixing. Sorry, we just need to fix here. We're not connected. Are you hearing me all right?
Yeah, you perfectly, Tony.
Yeah. Sorry, just we lost our power here. Look. So we know that bats, for example, can carry the coronaviruses. They can carry up to about 44 different strains of coronavirus in them. But they're not affected by it. But those bats, when they get in contact with different animals and humans in some instances, you can get that transmission of the virus going through, which is what is called a zoonosis. If you went back to just to remind ourselves of where we are, if you went back to the sort of ground zero, which is what happened in Wuhan, we know that the coronavirus started from a resident, some bat population, because they've sequenced it. They've done the genomic sequencing of the DNA, and just to get rid of all this conspiracy theory and so on. It's not something created in a lab that particularly was put out there to try and catch people. It's something that was present in bats, and they found the genomic sequence of the coronavirus, the COVID-19. Which have sequenced accurately to the bat population. But the problem we have is when you have the old and new world mixing, when you have various populations mixing, so like bats mixing with other types of animals and so on, those animals can become host for the coronavirus, and then from those animals it can get into the human population. In terms of where we are with the COVID-19, nobody's 100% sure what it is. We do know that the transmission seems to be going from bats to what's called pangolins, which would be like anteaters and that sort of things, and from somewhere between there into the human population. The odd thing, however, which is not clear, as I said, the evidence is we don't know, because they cleaned up the Wuhan district, the wet markets and so on. So we actually don't know what was the situation there. But some of these, I'm not implying this is it, Pastor David and ladies and gentlemen. I'm just saying that some people use, in that culture, use bat blood. They drink bat blood because they think it makes them younger, and they will eat bat meat and so on. So many people don't recognize that these bats that harbor these viruses, and it doesn't trouble the bat, if you were to contact them yourself, either directly, like say blood drinking or something, or if it went through another host like a pangolin, like an anteater and something, and then they got in contact with you, you could transmit the virus. So to answer your question, the bat exists. Now, to get more specific to your answer, the coronavirus is an RNA virus. An RNA virus is one of those viruses that needs the human cell in order to reproduce. So when you get the coronavirus by whatever means, and we could mention that there are three means that we know you could get it. You can get it by the aerosol spread, so somebody coughs or something. You can get it through contact, so it's put on their hands or somebody is on contact on some surface, somewhat surface. There is some suggestion you might even get it from body fluids, sputum, diarrhea and so on. So there's a possibility that these are means by which you can contact the virus. The point is, whenever you get the virus and the virus goes into the cell, it uses the human cell to reproduce. And in so doing, it is starting to mutate. And so what we now know is there are about 8 different strains of the coronavirus that's present. 2 of them in particular, particularly pathological to humans, the L strain and the S strain. But we do know that there are about 8 different strains. We have 4 or 5 different mutations in America alone. And so the difficulty we face is that twofold. One is that we don't know when you get a virus whether immunity is temporary or long-term. And there is certainly a suggestion that the immunity of people who have had it, some people have been reinfected by it. So it may not be a long-term protection. But the one that is probably more sinister is if you have multiple strains or mutations of the virus, which we have, as I said, at least 8 now, then even if you were immune to one particular strain and you got in contact with another one, then you would succumb to the disease. So the answer to that is yes, it is quite possible to get it another time, a second time, a third time, a fourth time, particularly if we have multiple strains in the population. And if those multiple strains are affecting you, you can get it. That also is what makes the production of a vaccine very difficult, which is just a point on that, is that there are attempts to make vaccines now. You know, there are a couple of them. England is testing one, we're testing one here, and so on. But the big issue and problem we face is that even if we got a vaccine and we could prove that it works, and was able after that to produce it in the mass numbers that's needed, that would only be to one strain. And if you got another strain coming into the population, that vaccine will not protect you. It's going to be a long journey. All I could say, ladies and gentlemen, is that we're on a long journey here. We're on a long journey. You know, you're looking at least 1 to 2 years maybe before we could get half decent control of this virus if a vaccine were to come by. It is going to be a bit of a long journey for us. The trouble is we really don't have a whole lot of information at this point about COVID-19 because we don't have any information about how long immunity would last. And in some instances, we're getting people reinfected. Now, whether that's because their immunity is short-term or whether it is because they got another strain of the virus that infected them, those answers are not really clear right now. So all of that is being investigated. That is what makes the problem or the challenge of a vaccine so difficult, because even if one were to get a vaccine to a specific virus or strain of virus, what you don't know is how long that immunity, that has to be tested. You have to test that to see how long that particular immunity was present. The thing about a vaccine, which is why, you know, as I said, it's trying to be realistic with people and at the same time give people some measure of hope. But being realistic with people, a vaccine is not going to come in terms of clinical, its clinical practice at least for another year. At least for another year. And probably more than that. A normal vaccine would take 3 to 5 years to get in practice. You'll have to cut short so many steps in order to bring a vaccine in. Not just a matter of producing the vaccine, which is a challenge because we've already said that you have to produce the vaccine to multiple strains, and those strains are changing all the time. I mean, this thing has just been going on for about 3 or 4 months, and yet we already have 8 different strains coming into the portfolio. So producing vaccines is a challenge in number one. And then the other thing is producing vaccines that will give you a long period of immunity. So it may be that even if they could find a vaccine, what you might end up having to do is have several boosters over a year. You might have 3 or 4 boosters in a year. I'm just saying if it came to that stage. But the truth is, at this point, we don't know. We really don't know. We don't know where we're going with it. All I can say for sure is that the hope of a vaccine is at least a year. And the other challenge about vaccines is when you get it, how do you mass produce it? I mean, like even if you could get a vaccine in Australia, let's say, for example, next week, you can't, but let's say you could, you know, and there are 24 million people in Australia that you need to vaccinate. You could probably produce 1 million vaccines a month, maybe. So you got to wait 24 months to even vaccinate just Australia. In 24 months, the amount of variation of the virus, the amount of mutations of the virus that would appear would make the vaccine obsolete. So, you know, I suppose the thing that will eventually happen is that over time, some people will develop immunity. Over time, people will become, you know, sort of comfortable with the virus, and it's going to be present in enough people where people don't get sick and die. But I do say, I mean, and I'm glad for the optimism of the government, because they've been able, as Lauren said, to back off on some of the issues for, to engage our mental well-being, but also because of the political and the social status and the economic situation, we need to get back to work. I am less hopeful in terms of getting a vaccine within a short period of time. I think that'll probably be an optimistic hope. I pray that it would happen. I pray that I'm wrong. But in reality, the vaccine systems just seem to be far away. In the meantime, however, we should still be practicing all those things that we know are conducive to good health and protection. So the quarantine issues, the safe distancing, the hand washing, the covering of the face, wearing a mask if you have a, and that's the thing, if you have a common cold now, whereas in the past you could probably just go around, you probably should be wearing a mask during that period anyway, for two reasons. One is the fact that until you're tested, you don't know if you have the COVID-19. But the second reason is that it had become socially unacceptable. So if you went into a community and you're just coughing and sputtering all over the place, you'd become like in the Old Testament days of leprosy. Unclean, unclean. You'll have to shout, unclean, unclean. But people would have a very negative view of people who are in the community with a cold or cough and not protecting their friends and the citizens. So I think you're looking at wearing a mask if you have a cold or if you come on with the disease in any fashion, and then protecting the surfaces by proper cleaning and so on. And then we say just general good health. You want to keep your body in good health. People who smoke and drink are definitely at a disadvantage, because that destroys the immune system. But other than that, I think we have to pray that God will protect us. I think of the destroying angel that came upon the Egyptians in the days of Israel, and being in bondage to the Egyptians. And the Bible says that the destroying angel did not injure any or hurt any of the firstborn of Israel. I'm still a believer in miracles, Pastor David. I'm still a believer in miracles. I still believe that God can send his angel to protect us and to keep us from the plague that, Bible says, the noisome plague, 1,000 shall fall at thy side and 10,000 at thy right hand, but it shall not come near thy dwelling. So I think with the spiritual perspective, we ought to keep God's miracle working power in the forefront of our thinking, that God is able to protect us as we move in these, what I would consider to be difficult season, not only for us, it's a difficult season for the world, a very difficult season. But I'm hoping that I know that God will take us through it. God is about to do a new thing.